We've started to specialize quite extremely with regards to multilingual systems, which are a challenge from a contextual translation perspective, from a design perspective, for example, iconography means different things to different cultures, and from a technology perspective, multilingual content management systems are extremely painful to code. And my designer forgot to put in my logos, but we've got quite a broad client base. It goes anywhere from big banks all the way down to a jewelry designer or an interior designer. We take work based on whether we think the project is interesting or the subject matter is interesting. We're in a very fortunate position that we can almost choose who and what we work with. And it took many, many years of practice and quite a few failures before we achieved that status. I've got a quick question for you guys. Who came in with laptops? Quick show of hands. Okay. Mobile only? Right. Any tablets? Okay. So that pretty much reflects where we are. There's a big movement and a big trend. Some of the lectures you've had in this future series have focused particularly on apps. I'm going to talk more generically about the issues we encounter and kind of what to look out for when you're designing and planning for mobile websites. So that would include smartphones and tablets. Yesterday, Marissa Myers, the CEO of Yahoo, made this big bold statement that mobile is a wave large enough that you can ride it to reinvention. And I have to say, there are so few women in tech, but I actually agree with her. This is the first opportunity that we really have to change how user behavior, how we look, how we use, and how we interact with information. A lot of people say you shouldn't think about mobile first, you should think about desktop computers because everybody is still largely using those, but it is such a massive opportunity, and this is where the growth will be. For you young guys starting out, you cannot live in one medium. You have to think about all the other options that are out there. So let's look at the boring bits for a moment. Why is mobile growing? Devices are getting better and cheaper. So somebody who couldn't necessarily afford a laptop can access the internet using a mobile phone. That means that we've got a larger target audience, simple economics. We've got broader coverage from faster networks. Don't know who of you are lucky enough to be on 4G, but it's coming. Global mobile data traffic, so that's just sheer data, grew by 70% in 2012. That is massive. It's 885 petabytes. And that is just, it's enormous. The market is literally exploding. Video traffic has exceeded 50% of why people are accessing online from mobile devices for the first time in 2012. Tablets are growing a little bit slower, but that should cover about 10% of global mobile data traffic by around 2015. The same thing is borne out by my clients. We've had real difficulty trying to convince our clients to pay for, I've got a bigger screenshot in a moment for you. There you go. To pay for what we call responsive web design or responsive site versions. There's almost an apathy from particularly the corporates where they're saying they're not ready for mobile, social media is not even a conversation yet. It's from a financial perspective, it's been extremely difficult to convince clients to buy into mobile. So what we did is we were approaching them with boring old stats. As you may have read, everything is about metrics these days. And there's real growth. Ooh, that's really not good quality. Sorry about that. I'll give you the PowerPoint presentation later. This is Oxford Street. It's got over 1 million unique visits a year, so that is a significant level of visitor traffic. And iOS has grown by over 400%, Android by over 200%. Can't even read that. But basically, the figures speak for themselves. A growth of 400%. Client has to say, we need to do this investment. Yes, it costs a little bit more, but we have to talk to our target audiences. So responsive web design is very much in the eye of the beholder. Who is that user? So for example, there's a big mix of devices here today. you're not necessarily using your device on the go. A lot of people argue that mobile design has to be fast and efficient and limited information. That's not the case, particularly if you're using your smartphone device to take notes, or you're using your tablet to edit video. So from that perspective, websites and apps, you need to understand exactly who it is that you're talking to. Male, female, demographics, why are they there? User experience is everything. We've got, on the web, we know less than 7 seconds to impress somebody before they run away. On a mobile device, it's even less. So from that perspective, if they can't find navigation, if they can't find a home button, they can't find the contact button, or you're simply giving them the wrong information on the first couple of screens, you've had your chips. Content production. It is still what makes the world go round. It's also, we've become really greedy. We've become used to having access to content, free, no less. There's a lot of restriction of what content people are making available on mobile devices, using small screens as an excuse. That is not the case. Our research proves that people are engaging and having deep level content experiences. Performance is queen. What I mean with this is when you're building and coding your websites for use on different devices, simple things like having JavaScript files and your CSS externally makes a huge difference to the loading speed. Also, if we can keep the processing on the mobile site versions as low as possible, your users will thank you because you're actually helping them with their battery life. So the less you have to process, the quicker the site will load and the longer they can engage with your content. So really the main message that I'm trying to communicate today is to learn the language of touch. I'm going to take you through some work examples that we've done. I hope that you think that's interesting, and talk about the problems that we encountered on these projects. That will hopefully give you a little bit of guidance in terms of when you're planning, designing, and coding for mobile sites, or RWD sites, I should really say, this is what you need to watch out for. The Tate Modern, this was in the early days. This was done in 2002. This is actually the interactive tours for paid exhibitions. If you go to the Tate, they're still using this interface, which was designed by Mark. The main challenges that we had on this is that at that stage, smartphones weren't what they were now, so it was PDAs. Bloomberg sponsored a couple, and we could design. As you can see, basic things. How do you make an arrow big enough so that you can click on it, even with a very, very minimalistic design? Finger-sized buttons, and it was a really engaging experience. So the idea being that if you're standing in front of an artwork, there are additional bits of information, content, and where possible, drawing out features such as highlighting things. So it's not just the biography of the artist. The most used element of this application is actually the map of the galleries, which we did not anticipate, but that is the case. But the main problem that we had was that this had to be for accessible users. And accessibility back in 2002 was not as well understood as it is today. Our main problem on this project was color. The Tate Modern's branding guidelines are extremely strict and extremely established. And the color set doesn't have a large amount of contrast between the colors. So our light reflection value, or L or V values, didn't work. And the research on Tate Modern visitors showed that a very large proportion of male visitors are colorblind, and that there are a lot of deaf users. So from that perspective, we couldn't use sound to help us out on the color side of things. And we had to work very hard with color experts and with the Tate branding agency in terms of finding colors that contrast strong enough without veering off. So from that perspective, it was an incredibly complex project. The installation was hilarious. We actually had to build a server inside the gallery. We didn't have the luxury of cloud services as we do today, and basically set up an internal wireless network for these devices to work. So the main cost of this project wasn't actually contained in the design and the execution of this interactive tour, but it was in the setup of the network and the devices to get it to run on something in the first instance. Nowadays, of course, it's all on smartphones, so that made it a lot easier. But the second major cost was the content creation, the audio interviews, the writing of the interactive tools. This had to be rewritten. Now it runs on HTML5, whereas at the time that we built it, it was in Flash. That was the only technology that you could use, which was very, very entertaining. But that has been quite an advancement, and it's interesting to see that it is still being used. We like to practice what we preach with regards to mobile devices and sites. So they need to be responsive. The simplest illustration is approaching things almost in a grid-like fashion, but using dynamic image resizing. So I'm starting off big, my navigation is horizontal. When I drop to iPad size, I drop my navigation, but I still have enough readability for 3 columns in portrait view. And then on the mobile version, single column display somehow still works the best. It's the easiest to use for the screen size. Sumerian was a very, very interesting project. These guys are data analysts based up in Edinburgh. They are proper nerds, as in serious. They're all mathematicians and scientists. And they wanted a different approach. They don't look like serious nerds when you look at the site. So the main challenge in this was branding it so that it works for their clients. And their clients are CEOs, are human resource managers, are CTOs, and they are the big decision makers. And their decision makers don't sit at their desks very often. They're running around between meetings, they're running around between different departments, they're doing the job of managing as they do. So from Sumerian's perspective, the mobile version was almost more important than the website version. And they've also developed SaaS or SaaS software, which is a tool for their clients to view their data consumptions and reports, etc. So the mobile challenge in that was extraordinary. Here we didn't have a lovely flexible grid to work with. Very, very big images, which have to be dynamic. So the entire system is dynamic. We have no idea what kind of copy they were going to put up there, how many rotating images they were going to put up there. So effectively what we had to do was work out a way to drop dynamic copy so that it adapts to the screen size from where we are. So technically, from a typography point of view, the designers hate us because they can't make their lovely little line breaks on the images. So that lovely flow of short, long, short, that kind of thing just didn't work. So we kept the branding guys happy by letting them play with the big images. And then on the mobile version, we used Scrote to drop the copy. Very important on this was also font sizes. We reduced some of the content, but not all of it. So you can see on the left-hand side, we've got where we have do-it-yourself and work together. We've taken some of the copy out. So what we can do then is we can focus on calls to action. Hello user, this is what I want you to do. I'm a busy CEO, what am I looking for? The software side, the services side, or am I actually going to go for a little browse? So from that perspective, that was how that one worked. The main technical problem that we had on this is actually not pure responsive web design, it's a bit of a hybrid, it's a compromise. And the direct result is because they forced us to use a Microsoft-based open source content management system. Normally we prefer to code in open source and on frameworks that allow us to customize completely. With out of the box, Microsoft's current first proper open source CMS, the restrictions are enormous in terms of what you can and can't do. So we don't have a lovely, elegant little drop of points on this site. I can't do the little trick of just pulling my browser window to see what it would look like in a mobile size. You literally have to access it on the mobile phone. So what we had to do was we had to code a sniffer that effectively identifies which browser version and device you're accessing the site with, and then we serve the right version. So this is a dirty implementation of mobile. It doesn't have an intermediate, so if I go on an iPad on portrait, not nice. I'm not happy with the user experience on this, but we were hemmed or hamstrung by the technology that we were forced to use for no particular rhyme or reason other than the client said so. Some battles you win, some battles you lose. So we had to compromise on this. So this is not RWD, but an actual mobile site version. It's more expensive, it's time consuming, and don't even get me started on the custom fonts. It was something else. The next project is quite a young one. Just launched in September, I think. Shillings are reputation lawyers. So when John Terry is hiding out from his injunctions, it's these guys who help him out. So, as you can imagine, privacy and all that sort of thing is of paramount importance. I'll talk about that in a moment. But I just wanted to show you how we start off planning these things. We plan sites in the same way that you plan things now. It starts normally on a wall of post-it notes, and then eventually we get to pretty little wireframes, but they do more than just wireframes. It shows me the user journey and what works the best in terms of trying to design or to plan is to identify, back to the old mantra, who is using it, on what device, for what reason, and then effectively creating a wireframe workflow for each target audience group. So are they coming here to ask for help? Are they coming here to read blog posts? Are they coming here for other kinds of information? What are they looking for? So as you can see, you just create a workflow, and really, really important is what you want to do with the navigation. How are you going to cater for that? This site gave us an additional level of complication because it's effectively 3 microsites combined under one URL. We've got Shillings, which is the commercial law side of things. We've got family law, and then they've got a little reputation resilience booklet. So navigation on this one was a particular challenge with regards to how do we work out where to go. This is the end result. Now, here the biggest problem with the images. Again, from a design perspective, lovely big image, my key communication message is here. They've actually got a sense of humour as lawyers, it's really lovely. So they've got one bit of communication, which is the chairman's underpants, which is what you need to do to deal with chairmen who tweet inappropriate things, for example, and damage a company's reputation as a result. So something like the cooperative's ex-incumbent at the moment. Here, this is all pretty simple. Logo, I found out what to do with my navigation. But now I've got this lovely little bracket on my bird. And this text, again, is dynamic, and the links are dynamic because it needs to be content managed and updated and manageable by the client. But on a mobile version, if I auto-shrink that image with code, this little bracket moves. So the little bracket no longer sits where I need it to on the image. So the whole visual point on emphasis is destroyed. The designers are unhappy, and the user is unhappy because this bracket will potentially sit over the copy. So from that perspective on this one, it is still pure responsive, but what we do is we identify certain breakpoints. So as my screen gets smaller, we actually serve different images. So that's a bit of a pain in terms of content management, because the client or whoever updates the site content do need to prepare a set of 3 images as opposed to 1, and we can just shrink it up. But this is a perfect illustration of where a design idea gives you an entirely different technical problem. So we have to have a fixed image size to ensure design integrity, but what happens when I put it on a different device? So that's just a purely technical problem to solve. And that's something that you discuss with a client and say, look, this is going to be the future problem of this site. It looks beautiful, it works beautifully. All of this text is dynamic, it's search engine optimized. But when it comes to creating or updating these lovely images on your homepage, you're going to have to do a little bit of extra work. Then again, there are lawyers, they have the money to pay for 3 images. So from that perspective, it's all right. This is a very strange project. It's the only business-to-business project that I'm going to show you. It is on a site it's for Virgin Media, obviously. The purpose of this is what they call employee affiliate schemes. That is a huge growth sector in terms of online tools. Most corporates have an intranet of some kind or the other. And what they've started to do is companies like Virgin Gyms, Cisco, NextJump, Coffin Warehouse, whatever, they club together because that gives them buying power. So they will go to someone like Virgin Media, or Virgin Media will go to them and say, okay, we can offer your employees discounts on our particular product. It's a win-win situation for everybody. Employees are happy because they get benefits, they get discounts simply for working somewhere. The employer is happy because they can show corporate social responsibility, they're taking care of their employees in a nice way. And the client who sells the product is happy because if you've got a company like Cisco or NHS Nurses, or our latest one on the system is actually the Department of Defense, signing up to these, you've got an immediate catchment of an insane amount of sales. So from this perspective, Virgin Media are really happy. From one client alone, we've got over 250 orders a week on these packages. And they are not cheap, I tell you. If you start upgrading, you're ending up with like 70, 80, 90 quid a month for television services. But hey ho, it's all good. Our problem on this is that it's highly information sensitive because people can actually book the package online. So we are recording direct debit details. So from a data privacy information perspective, this project is an absolute nightmare. Not only do we have to have top-notch security, but there's an other issue that people don't want to log in. I can't give every Cisco employee a unique login to this website. It's completely ridiculous. The management of that is insane. So what we had to do was we had to code auto logins that takes the right client to a specific thing. So they click on a button on the intranet and they land on the appropriate offer. There are multiple offers. And from that perspective, we close it off with SSH and all other sorts of lovely little features. Last week we had clever users who actually changed the URLs in the top of the screen to see if they could get different offers. So we had to lock that one down. And we had to tie this up to Virgin Media's VPN or private internet connection. So we've got a super secure server sitting on the one end, collecting the information on a temporary basis, shooting it off to Virgin's secure server somewhere in a data center, which no one will ever be able to discover, from where they then continue to process the leads. So that level of integration has been an absolute challenge, but it's also quite cool. And then we build in things like, for example, we delete the information. Once an order is completed, we have to auto-wipe it from the systems. We had to go through some serious compliance with not only Virgin security, but also what they call PCI DSS, which is basically proving that you are not stealing or letting other people steal your data. And that actually involved people coming to our studio and inspecting our site to make sure that we have the appropriate firewalls and hard disk storage and heaven knows what else. And you think, this is a website, what on earth? But you can understand it. Also, the liability on me would be extreme if we lost somebody's direct debit details, or if our database was compromised in any way whatsoever, I could be sued for millions. And that will destroy my business. So from that perspective, we've had to jump through many, many hoops. The lovely thing about this is that we have no idea what content the client is going to put in. Literally, on a daily to weekly basis, they change offers. And the offers change depending on which clients they are making these offers available to. So for example, on Tesco, we've got different phone line rental prices to on Cisco. So from that perspective, this system looks very lean on the front, but on the content management side of things, it's a beast, it's a monster. So every element that you see here, the client can manipulate, it's dynamic. So the challenge is building. I've got banners, I've got another kind of banner, but now I've got this lovely 3-column thing going on here, and here I've got another little 3-column thing, and here I've got little icon emoji things, and you can well imagine that with each one, these things are different. So we've had to invent a system where good old-fashioned Joomla or WordPress would simply not cut it. We cannot use an out-of-the-box framework for this. We had to custom code this content management system. Well, it's more of an administration system, really. The content's the minor part. But some of these offers have got 1 column, some have no banners, some have 2 columns. So we had to build the content management system almost in the same way of blocks, or Lego, if you will, to the front end. So as you can see, it's quite a complicated grid. It's a 12-column grid, which, by the way, is the best idea ever. If you have to design a site for mobile use, 12-column grid will save you every time, because it gives you enough flexibility to shrink quite effectively and then associate where and how that information is going to live. So here you can just see a small application of a column, and then if I move to mobile, deciding what is important. I auto-shrink this lovely BT Sport banner. You can still read it if you're on the phone. And then the most important thing is what is included in the offer, with very clear call to action and very clear, actually, I need help. Okay, Body Shop. When you work in a corporate environment, you get to have lots and lots of training courses. So every time a new employee starts in a body shop, let's say on the shop floor, you have to go through induction training. So that involves everything from make sure that the window display is clean, where's the ladder, health and safety, that you have to take a little wooden stick and flick off the lipsticks every morning. All the testers need to be clean. So there's a lot of little things that somebody needs to know when they start. This is a trial project. Body Shop came to us through their video production company because they wanted a new way of doing this learning. How they're doing the learning now on most of their projects, and that goes all the way up to managerial level training, is quite old-fashioned. They create a DVD and they create a paper workbook, and people get to sit in a dark little room, watch the DVD and do the exercises in the workbook. The manager physically comes along, signs the workbook, training done. Okay? Now imagine that across Body Shop globally. So now we start looking at languages, the logistical cost of shipping thousands of DVDs to different countries and translating all of these things. So it's expensive, it's cumbersome, and I think a really old-fashioned way of learning. You're basically sitting there and someone's shouting stuff at you, and then you get to write and off you go. So they wanted a more engaging way, so we're doing it with induction training as a trial. This will be used on till points, and hopefully in future on iPads. So what we've built is basically we have a Body Shop till. screen. And we had to jump through a couple of hurdles. The first one is, are the talk points actually connected to the internet? Or do we have to download the learning application onto a talk point, which comes with its own problematic, because this is, again, dynamic. It's got a content management system behind it. It tells you which users can use it, what kind of content which users see. So if we'd have to update it, we'd have to find some way that every night at midnight we would force some kind of mass update across all the talk points in the UK. And then the project is going bigger. We're going to France, we're going to China, we're going to Singapore, Malaysia. So the logistics of just this amount of data gets crazy. So fortunately the talk points are connected to the internet because they take transactions, so that was cool. We have a problem though that the talk points program won't run HTML5 at this time, it'll only run Flash. Yay! So I know very well that then I'm serving it on the talk point, but I can't serve it on an iPad. And the reason we have to consider iPads is, well, it just makes no sense, or tablets, sorry, not necessarily just iPads. So from that perspective, we're like, okay, does everybody, are they all going to get tablets in store at some point? No one knows. Then we discovered another problem, that the talk points in the US are not connected to the internet, so they will be going to tablets first. Don't ask me how they transact. There's some magic that happens at midnight. But it is true that in the Midwest, the body shop's tools are not connected. So they'll be starting off with tablets, whereas in the UK, we'll be starting off with talk points. So now imagine how to get this data there. So we're converting our film content, because it's primarily video-driven training, in terms of, again, using a sniffer and identifying which device is accessing this e-learning program, and then serving either a Flash version of video alone, and then old-fashioned HTML for the surrounding bits, or if it's the newer device, then we just serve the HTML5 version from there. The fun part about this is that we could really go to town. This looks really simple, it's a map, but we've got little dots on the map. And the content management system is so cool that I can take an image, whether it's a map or the inside of a store, because we don't know what kind of content we're going to create. And I can put the dots on the map, and then I can define an action. Give me, well, a rollover if I'm on a website. But what is the first issue? I can't have a rollover when I'm using my fingers. It has to be a click. So from that perspective, we have to create a button or a call to action for the second click. I need one click to tell me that there's overview information, and then I need more information or a call to action, literally click me, to get the person to the second screen, which brings up either a video, for example, or what we call a learning screen. So where they can have a combination of things, copy, video, images, etc., all within the confines of the very defined talk point screen size, or then with a little bit more flexibility when we are looking at tablets. From a learning perspective, this is much more engaging. The user gets to do things. We're also doing exercises on screen and collecting the data as we go along. So the need for printing cumbersome workbooks that are out of date almost the second they've printed them is disappearing. And yeah, this is in trial at the moment in a couple of stores in the UK. And we're now starting to plan the second program, which will be their customer loyalty, which is the little cards that you get. Politically, however, this is not one, because the regions can't agree what to call the scheme. So, is it Love Your Body, or Love Body Shop, or just Love, or whatever? There's like 3 different regional names for this thing. So in the meantime, we're developing content, but I'm not sure when we'll be able to actually deploy the program until the international tiff over the name has been resolved. So from a mobile development version, the challenge here is the content management side of things is relatively simple. It's effectively a giant survey. I have information screens and then I have question screens. So it's just a